So, when did counseling stop being about problem solving? Well, not anymore. Introducing solution-focused counseling with the unlicensed counselor. And now, here's your host, Steve Moak.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of The Unlicensed Counselor. My name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor, and as always, so grateful to be here today. It is another beautiful day in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, and honestly, one of my favorite days of the year. We are talking about the first day of March Madness. No, this did not turn into a sports betting show, but I tell you, it is fun just seeing all these teams and getting together, the excitement that kind of comes into it. So I don't know, get all giddy when I wake up on these Thursdays, and doesn't hurt that it's 85 degrees out here in Scottsdale, Arizona. Just a fun time of year. We got spring training in full swing. We got March Madness going. Good time to be alive, right, Robin? See, look, I'm even trying out this camera over here to make Rob happy back in the studio. Hey, got some fun stuff I want to talk about today. I told you we're going to do the 4-part series on the vices, and I did the episode on gambling, right, to kind of coincide with the start of March Madness. I got an episode on sex addiction that I may actually re-record that one as well, too, and post it out to everybody. So stay tuned on that topic. And then we took a quick break, and I wanted to kind of talk about conflict resolution because that came up kind of in my own life last week, and I thought it was relevant, and hopefully you did as well, too. But today I want to get into a topic that, honestly, I don't want to say I struggle with it, but I am very mindful of, and that is around overeating, right? I know a lot of people, kind of have weight and weight loss and staying fit and all those types of things kind of on your mind constantly. And I just want to talk about what overeating can look like, maybe some ways to stop overeating, some other, just tips and tricks, call them life hacks if you can, around eating and things like that as well, too. And truthfully, it's, it's challenging, right? And I was even thinking about it going into this episode because I got a lot of college basketball I'm probably going to be watching this weekend. And I don't usually sit around and just watch TV and sports, but this is one of those weekends where I kind of give myself a pass to do so. And, it's like, oh, great. I don't want to just sit all weekend and just munch around, and it's so easy to do. So, I was thinking about this kind of going into this weekend, so if I'm thinking about it, I want to talk to it and share it out there with the world. But before we get going, as always, I want to say a big thank you to our friends over at ShareTech. This is the industry-leading at-home drug and alcohol screen, right? So if you are in the market for a drug or alcohol test, go to betterdrugtest.com, pick up the drug test that the leading treatment centers and outpatient programs tell their clients to get when they go home, right? This is a lab-based test that you can do from the privacy of your own home that requires no observed collection. Not one of these Amazon cheapy tests that someone has to stand in the same room with you and put eyes on stream, if you know what I mean. Right? Didn't mean that to come out that way, but hey, what the heck, right? So, if you are in the market, go to betterdrugtest.com, pick up one of these tests. It's the most accurate drug and alcohol screen available on the market, and it tests for the most substances as well, too. Always like to plug the nonprofit work that I'm doing as well, too. That is for youth drug abuse prevention. Go to the stopstartshere.org. Follow us at Hard Stop Official. Again, we believe youth drug prevention messaging needs to be consistent, reinforced, and saturated in kind of messaging, and we are doing that via social media explicitly. Gone are the days of showing up for 1-hour assembly, when you're in middle school and high school and hoping that keeps kids off drugs and alcohol. We think there needs to be a better, newer, fresher approach, and that's what we're doing at the stopstartshere.org. And again, follow me on all the usual social channels. And by the way, if you want to send a message to the Unlicensed Counselor, you can obviously do it on social, but you can send me an email, steve@theunlicensedcounselor.com. May take me a day or two to get back to you, depending on how many emails I get, but don't be afraid. Hey, like this, hated that, disagree with you on this. Always happy to kind of have a conversation around this. I think it's healthy, right? Just because I say it doesn't mean it's true, and maybe you have an opinion that is different, and maybe you can change my mind. I think one of the cool things in dialogue is maybe I keeping an open mind so I could see a point of view that maybe I didn't have previously. So don't be afraid to try. I reply to all of them myself, so I'd love to keep the conversation going offline. Okay. Oh, man, it is so nice here. I was kind of looking forward to this topic today because it's like, look, I've got this In my personal life, I've talked about health and wellness quite a bit. It's important to me. I go to the gym every day. I was at hot yoga this morning. We'll go and lift tonight. It's an important part of my life. But you can work out, run, exercise, lift all you want. You're never going to outperform your diet, right? So if what you're putting in your body on a regular basis is either crappy food, or you're not being mindful about how you approach your eating, or you just never really thought about it all that much, I think now use this episode as a way to kind of think about, all right, I have noticed some habits that I do that I get up and I eat this or eat that, or I drink these sodas or all these sugary drinks or whatever. If you take one thing away from this episode today, it's like, let's just take a pause and think about maybe a slight way starting today that you can improve something. Instead of that Coke, maybe you switch it to an iced tea or something like that. Just find little ways to kind of adjust your diet. But overeating is challenging, and I love to eat. We all love to eat, right? So I'm really hoping that we can put in some place. This is what I do in my own life to kind of reduce my intake, right? Because I can just sit down on the couch and just start going to town. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I don't feel good. Like, what did I even just consume? And you almost feel guilty, right? But let's talk about what overeating is, really. Overeating is really eating beyond the point of fullness, right? I mean, it's just, and I do this all the time. It's like, I'm starting to feel, and one of my problems, and I'm even jumping ahead of myself here, is I eat too damn fast, right? I sit down and I'll go into a meal hungry, and I can scarf that food down. I mean, when I'm at a table, I'm usually one of the first people done, and which, by the way, doesn't work really well on dates, because I've gone on dates recently, and it's like they're kind of maybe a little bit of a slower eater sometimes, and then all of a sudden I'm like embarrassed because I've basically just chowed this down, and then they happen to be a slow eater, and now we've got kind of this like gap in terms of what the heck's going on. Did you call the police out here, Robin? What'd you do? All right. The Unlicensed Counselor Show on fire. Is that what we're talking about? Good times. But let's talk about why overeating happens first. Let's start there. The first one I have in mind is kind of emotional eating, right? So many people use food as a way to cope with emotion, stress, sadness, and boredom, right? I've found myself doing that. And again, kind of unconsciously doing it. When I was going through my divorce and I was at home and it was just kind of, you find yourself getting up and opening the pantry, opening the fridge, doing the same thing 10, 15 minutes later as if there's going to be something different that's just popped into your fridge or into your pantry, right? And you can find myself just kind of grazing because I was kind of down, I was kind of sad, I was kind of angry, I was kind of confused, right? And it was just like that little thing of, okay, well, I'm in recovery from drugs and alcohol, so I'm not going to pick up a drink and I'm not going to pick up a drug. And so food was kind of an easy thing to do. And I don't know why carbs always were the thing that I was drawn to, right? It was just like, I don't know, the crunchy, the salty, or whatever it is, right? It can make me hungry just thinking about it, see, right? So, number two is the environmental and social issues as well, too, right? So, think about this when you're going out to dinner and things like that, this could be those large portion size, the high calorie foods that are out there, the social situations that you kind of get into that can be around overeating and things like that as well too. It happens, right? And I find this to be a lot of the time in, Christmas time, the holiday season, something like that, where it's just like, everything is out on a plate. Everything is big. Everything is just like a free-for-all. You got cookies and brownies, and that stuff just piles up. So you get into these environments, and it seems very, very easy to just start kind of chowing down, right? So just being aware of kind of the environment and the social influences and how that can lead to overeating as well, too. Number three that I wanted to get into is kind of habitual behavior, right? This is why overeating happens, right? So it's just these patterns that we've developed over time, such as eating while watching TV. It can lead to overeating without even realizing it, right? And I think there really is something between the connection of TV and overeating as well, too, or tablet or whatever it is that you choose to do. So I think if you're able to kind of identify why this overeating happens, and then maybe you'll be able to start shifting some of these patterns and see if it'll make an impact on maybe how much you're consuming as well. And then the fourth point is really just, why overeating happens, just the biological factor of this too, right? Hormonal imbalances, genetic predispositions, changing in the body for hunger and fullness can lead to overeating, right? All of that stuff, it's just good to be aware. I'm fortunate in my family, like we've got pretty healthy people for the most part around, so I've had good healthy eating examples, but I find that it's real easy to slip out of it. When I was doing my startup work, I had, the wife, and I had 2 and then 3 kids and a newborn, and the stress, like I got into these really bad patterns. I wasn't exercising, I wasn't taking care of myself, and I started to just increase. And, you see the face get a little fuller, that was kind of the way, because people kind of put weight on different ways. All of a sudden the pants are a little bit tighter, and you're like, whoa, got to take the belt out one more notch there, right? So, be on the look. These are signs, right? That, things maybe need to be taken a look at, and all fixable, by the way, right? So let's talk about some ways. We all know kind of what overeating looks like, right? Let's talk about some ways, and how maybe we can address this. Some people call it life hacks. I just like to keep it simple. That's what we do here at the Unlicensed Counselors, really just try and keep bite-sized kind of solution-focused tips coming your way. And that's what I want to talk about with this. So the number one thing I had on my list today was, these are simple and they may sound even stupid, but let's use smaller plates, right? Let's use a smaller plate. It'll make the portion look a little bit bigger, and it'll kind of almost trick your brain a little bit into feeling, satisfied with less food, right? And I have found that it just takes a little time for your body to get used to consuming less food. But once it does, you get a little used to it. Vice versa, I go out of town with my family, and I kind of let up on my diet, not restrictiveness, but I'm just like, whatever goes. I find that I'm eating more, and then I come home and I feel like I wanted to eat more, right? So it's like the pattern that you develop is. So getting a little smaller plate, and I've done this at my home too, instead of like these gigantic squares that I used to have, let's put a little smaller plate and just see if we can start kind of working towards a little smaller plate and hopefully some portions, right? Number 2, and it's what I just touched on, slow it down, right? Eat a little more slowly. I've heard this nugget that I'm going to share with you. It takes about 20 minutes for your brain to recognize fullness. I've never once given my brain a chance to recognize fullness. Like, you would think I'd been on an island, what was the Tom Hanks movie, for the last month or something like that, Wilson or whatever that thing was, that was the volleyball. But you know what I'm talking about, Robin. You'd think I would have just came back from not eating, and I don't know where or how I developed my pattern. We actually joke about it in my family, because my family actually does that as well too. And I think there's part of it is like, sometime if, people are going to pick off the other person's food if they're eating. So it's almost like a competitiveness. But all that aside, let's slow it down. And this is something I've been more mindful of, especially when I go out on dates and things like that, because you want to be that idiot who's just mowing this down, and then maybe she's a little bit on the slower side, and it just is, it can be a touch awkward, right? So chew slowly. Take some breaks between your bites. Allow your body to register that you're kind of getting satiated, right? That you're slowly getting full. Have some water in there. Just, pause it for a minute. Maybe you don't have to cut the whole thing up or whatever, and just kind of take your time through this a little bit. I also found, I've done a lot of business lunches in my day, and it's like, I usually have a lot to say, and I found that I would have to scarf it down a little bit in order to make sure I ate, but then I could also be talking at the same time. So just be aware at the speed of which you're kind of doing this, right? Now, number 3, mixed feelings on this, but hey, it's a life hack if you want to try it. Use a food diary, right? Writing down everything you can eat to make you more aware of your eating habits, helping you identify patterns and triggers for overeating. There are a ton of good apps that do this as well, too, and people track their macros and what they eat and all this type of stuff. I've never been one to kind of do that, but I know that's a very popular thing that people like to do. And it might be interesting to kind of see. It's like, oh man, yeah, I do kind of graze on this and that and the other thing. But if that's something that you think would maybe bring it more to your forefront and kind of help you track what you're putting down, go for it. Try a diary, or just try one of these apps, right? Number 4, drink some water before your meals, right? Try and put back a little bit of water before you sit down, and hopefully that's going to slow you down a little bit and also help give you that feeling of being a little bit fuller maybe than you used to as well. That the goal is to reduce that likelihood of overeating. I think that's a great way to do it. Plus, from a health and wellness standpoint, I don't think we all drink enough water at the same time as well, too. I know everybody kind of has a Stanley Cup these days, but I don't know what they're full of. but be drinking some water throughout the day as just a general health and wellness thing as well too. Number 5, eat a protein-rich breakfast. Protein is all the buzzwords in social media and lifting and health and wellness, and I believe in that, and candidly, I think I'm a pretty good example of it. I shifted my diet to a much heavier protein-style diet, and the results have been outstanding, but I've also coupled that with, cardio, with weightlifting, and some of the other stuff I do. I still haven't mentioned hot yoga yet, but I guess I just did. Starting your day with that protein can help you feel full longer. And I think it's really made a big impact on my life as well, too, because I do, it's not that I don't like the feeling of being hungry. I'm okay with that. I'm not a child. I don't need a snack every second of the day where I need to have it. But I do like to feel like I'm satiated, and because I go and do a lot of stuff and I'm exercising and burn a lot of calories, right? So starting out with eggs. I mean, it's nature's vitamin is what I've heard it referenced many times over, and I have started to become a big believer in that. And by the way, I don't just do eggs in the breakfast. In fact, I do eggs probably at lunch and dinner more than I do at breakfast as well, too. I tend to eat just a very light breakfast, unless you count coffee as breakfast. Then I'm a great breakfast eater, right? Another thing that is starting to make the rounds on social and kind of health and wellness is focusing on fiber, right? So high fiber foods like fruits and vegetables, those are things that can help keep you full on fewer calories as well. I'm a big fan of the fruits as well, too, as my snack. I went to, Fry's last night and picked up some blackberries, some raspberries, and I keep that in my fridge. I ended up eating the entire packages that I got last night. So again, this is an area of emphasis, but I don't really care if I eat, a thing of blackberries and a thing of raspberries as well too, because those are kind of the good things that I like to keep around my house. And I try and keep some of the other junk stuff not in my house, because I am a guy that if it's in my house, I'm going to put it down, right? And so I know me, I accept me, I'm okay with that. I just don't buy it, right? And when I was previously married and we had kids and we had snacks and we had all this stuff around the house all the time, I'm in there eating the goldfish, which are terrible for a lot of reasons. I'm in there eating all the little grab and go stuff, and it was just like, oh, and you wonder why you're 20 pounds overweight, right? Okay, next up on the list, let's think about planning your meals a little bit more. Knowing what you're going to eat in advance can prevent those impulsive decisions and overeating. I think this is a really important thing that most people don't give enough foresight to, because when they hit that kind of, oh, I'm really hungry point, and then it's like, I got to go. Like, what's closest by? There's In-N-Out. I'm going to run over there and grab some of that right now. Or there's a Taco Bell. I'm going to make sure I jump in there and grab it. If you've got your meals kind of already an idea of what's in your head, then you're more likely to kind of stick to that routine and hopefully prevent the overeating or making, I'm not going to say bad decisions, but maybe healthier versus unhealthier decisions. There's a place that's called Salad and Go here in town. Not the world's greatest salads particularly, but it's kind of my default go-to when I get really hungry and I'm out and about and I'm like, let's just go grab a salad real quick, right? And make sure that I can do that. And for me, that saves me from getting the French fries, the burger, and I don't really drink soda at all, so that's not a thing. But it's those little decisions along the way that I have found that kind of lead me to overall, better kind of action and idea on keeping my weight where I would like to keep it, right? I just touched on this point as well, too. Out of sight, out of mind, right? Chips, snacks, cookies. I mean, there's whole aisles at the grocery store that I don't even go down, right? Those bags, they just call to me. And if you look down the aisle on those things, it's the same with the cereal aisle for me, too. And God, would I love to just crush cereal all day long. But I can't do it, right? So when I see those things, and truthfully, it sounds stupid, but I don't go down the booze aisles either, but I'm a recovering alcoholic. I don't go down the cookie aisles because even if I have a moment of weakness in there and I get a bag of Chips Ahoy, I'll eat the whole damn thing in 2 days. I really should have, the Girl Scouts just delete me from their entire record system, because that might as well be an 8-ball for me. I get those Thin Mints in the freezer, and it's like, there goes a month worth of healthy eating, because I'm just going to crush all those things. So again, out of sight, out of mind. If you do buy those, whatever there is, and I'm not saying don't do it. You don't have to go crazy like I tend to do sometimes. Just keep them out of sight, out of mind. Limit the amount of doing it. Personally, I'd rather see you not do it. I mean, if this is something that you really want to make a big stride or inroad in and kind of managing your overeating a little bit more and watch your weight or however you want to think about it as, eliminate it, right? Find a great substitution. I go to Costco. They got these 90-calorie fudge bars, right? I don't even know if I ever really liked fudge bars growing up, but I do like a little sweet something after a meal. I found this little thing, boom, I'm perfect, right? Or I'll even use a protein bar a lot of time as a dessert these days too, just to kind of continue to up it. Find whatever works to you. Those are just some little things that I do, right? Next up on the list, limit the distractions while you're eating, right? So avoid eating in front of the TV or computer. The distracted eating leads to more calories consumed. I mean, look, I am as guilty can be when I do this. Half the time my daughter's with her mom, half the time I'm by myself. Am I going to sit down at the table and like a good guy and just sit there and eat my salad? No, I sit down, I turn on PTI, and I'm watching kind of what's going on for a half hour and DVR through it and things like that. But I also limit the things that are in my house, so I know that I'm not going to go too crazy on whatever it is that I'm trying to grab, right? And that's just my way of kind of mitigating it. But I do, and this is something I'm really working on, is need to think about, sitting and watching TV. But then I'm like, this weekend. I'm not going to say throw everything out I just said because it's March Madness weekend, but I think you are allowed to give yourself a pass too. And it's just like when people talk about when the holidays roll around and like, oh, I'm going to gain weight or this, that, and the other. I'm like, if you're doing all the things over the course of the year that are healthy and you're living a good lifestyle, don't worry about Thanksgiving to, January 1st, right? Worry about the other 11 months of the year, which is where you're really going to make the impact on your physique, your look, your health, and all that kind of stuff. So, giving yourself a pass, I think, is what I'm saying. And I'm not just saying that because I want to give myself a pass this weekend while I sit around and watch college football. But what I've also done is went ahead and stocked up when I went to Fry's last night on some snacks that are more popcorn, right? I got some of these chip hip pea things that are, a little healthier kind of snacks, if you will, as well, too, that even if I crush the entire bag, it's like 600 calories or something like that. And I don't usually do it. I'm not saying I couldn't do it. But it's just little things along the way that kind of set you up. I went and bought, extra fruit just to have around the house because I'm probably log a couple more hours than I usually do, right? Next up on the list, practicing mindful eating, less mindless eating, right? So when you're sitting down for a meal and you're diving into something, think about how it tastes, right? The texture, the smell of your food. Try and enjoy your food or savor it a little bit more rather than just consuming the heck out of it like it just needs to be finished, right? Think about kind of while you're doing it or how it's nourishing you or how it's, put a little thought. And it sounds a little woo-woo. I get it. And again, maybe this one isn't the one for you in terms of a life hack around overeating and things like that. But if you can think about these things from a mindfulness perspective as you're going to, it might help you prevent or slow you down from getting to that overeating standpoint, right? Here's another one that goes overlooked often, sleeping well, right? That lack of sleep can affect your hormones that regulate hunger, that lead to increased appetite and overeating. 7 to 9 hours, if you can find there and do that. I think that's really where you want to land if you can do this. I actually just got a new mattress, and the one cool thing, it's one of these Sleep Number beds. There you go, free plug. In fact, lop off some bucks on that mattress that I just paid for. That thing was a small fortune. I bought cars that were probably less expensive than that thing. But that's neither here nor there. But one of the cool things that came with this, outside of that you can adjust the thing and soft or hard and things like that, because I found that I like a firmer mattress, but if I have somebody over, they might not want to sleep on the old rock mattress that we're referring to as well there too. But what they have is this, I don't know how they do it. They track my heart rate now, and it's tied to an app. So every morning I can wake up and they're like, you fell asleep at 10:17, you got 7 hours, you woke up, and it's got this little chart. You woke up, if I got up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, it shows. And then it kind of rates my sleep quality. It gets my heart rate and all this type of stuff. So it's given me more insight into my sleep than I've probably ever had in my life. And I found it kind of interesting. And now I've had it for a week or two. I'm starting to track and kind of monitor, and it actually does correlate to how I feel. So just something to keep in mind of. I know we all talk about sleep and think about it, but sleep as it pertains to helping regulate your appetite as well too. Another thing to try and do is find some other comforts besides food, right? If you have those kind of emotional eats and things like that, try and find another way to do it, right? Going for a walk, reading, take a bath, do some cleaning around the house, play with your dog or the kids or something like that. Find some other way to kind of comfort or soothe or distract so you're not just going for the bag of Doritos or you're not just feeling like you need to pick up this or that and the other thing and just kind of continue to go, right? Find ways to kind of, distract or comfort yourself. And then I think one of the more important things is if you can just eat regular meals, right? I think if you're into the skipping thing or the intermittent fasting thing, that's fine. If it works for you, great. I'm not here to say it works or doesn't work. But I am a fan of just kind of the consistent meals. And, I'm eating at this time, I'm eating at this time, I'm eating at this time. And I just know what's coming down the plate. I have a meal. I'm not going to say it's prepared, but I have an idea of exactly what I want to get or what I'm going to have. I eat a lot of, like I said, protein. So it could be tuna fish, could be salads, could be eggs, could be steak, could be ground beef. I like to make chili, and I keep these things readily available for me, or at least kind of the ingredients, so that I can just kind of put that together and I know kind of always what's upcoming. I just don't like to let myself get too hungry because then I'll make a bad decision because I'm just like, I've been going all day and exercising, work and stress. And I'm like, I need something, right? All right, a couple more things on the kind of the life hacks to overeating list real quick. Let's start by just serving yourself smaller portions, right? You can always go back for more, but let's not take the behemoth scoop of whatever it is right out of the gate and see if you can find a way to get satiated by eating a little bit slower, drinking a little bit of water before you're doing it, right? Maybe, eating some of the protein first and then the veggies. There's different ways that you can kind of biohack your way into potentially slowing your roll around the eating as well too, but just smaller portions, right? Just smaller portions. Doesn't have to be that overly complicated. And you get me in front of like those casserole dishes at Thanksgiving and I am like, boom, I am going hard on the big scoops, right? The plate's like a mound of food kind of thing. It's like, and look, again, it's Thanksgiving. Do whatever the heck you want. But in general, maybe just see if you can always go back, right? But maybe you don't have to load the entire thing up right around the place. And then last but not least, let's check in with your hunger, right? Before eating, are you really that hungry, or are you just bored, right? Are you really that hungry or are you just bored? And just put a little thought into your eating before you just kind of jump out there and start diving into it, right? So those are some quick hacks around it. Now, let's say you've tried some of these things, they're not really working, right? What do? Obviously, go see some counselor, get some professional help, a healthcare, a dietitian, a therapist. They can help with strategies around this as well too. In actual counseling, a therapist, right? They have CBT, not CBD, cognitive behavioral therapy techniques that can kind of help address maybe some of the underlying emotional and psychological reasons that you might be overeating as well too. There's obviously some support groups that are out there for this as well too that people do have some success with. And then there is medical interventions as well too, right? I don't know anything about the bans and all that kind of stuff. I know Ozempic is now a new thing in the world. There's a lot of fads that come along that kind of blow up and they blow up because they work, but long term, are they the best? I'm thinking of Fen-Phen, I don't know if anybody's even old enough to know what Fen-Phen is here, but that was it was like speed basically, right? That kept you from wanting appetite. Same thing as Coke. I'm sure a lot of people, use that. Cocaine, that is, not the drink, right? But, I'm a big believer that there's no shortcuts in nature, so consult with your doctor, not the unlicensed counselor. If you're going to dive into that, go crazy, do whatever works for you, but I don't think there's ever going to be a better shortcut for an improved diet and exercise and good sleep. Just this unlicensed counselor's opinion. But look, tackling kind of overeating and all this stuff, think of it's going to touch on a lot of different things. So take a suggestion or two, put it into play today, or maybe if you don't want to put it into play and you're going to be sitting around kind of watching some hoops or whatever this weekend, maybe just take some snapshots of how you're doing it over the course of the weekend. And then when you get to Monday and you're feeling like crap, and you're not sleeping good and you're like, oh, what did I do? Yeah, then maybe that'll be the time that'll actually start to motivate you into some action as well, too. So, the goal is if we can just find some healthier eating habits, if this episode kind of helps spark some of those things, take a listen, share it to a friend. Again, take one of these things and put it into play today, or watch yourself for the weekend and then see how it goes, and then maybe give it a shot, starting out next week. So that's all I got. My name is Steve Moak. I am the unlicensed counselor. Until next time, thank you very much.